So I thought to tell you a little bit more about the trip. We started out in Taiwan and visited a few nunneries, and I gave talks at a few different places. The nuns in Taiwan are really strong. They're all bhikshunis. There's many more of them than the monks, and the monks are very respectful and appreciative of the nuns. So it's a really different kind of feeling. And the nuns are also very independent. They establish their own monasteries, they run their own things. Um, they teach the lay people, they have institutes, Buddhist institutes, they educate their own nuns and so on. So it's really nice to see kind of Buddhism being very strong and seeing the women being so active and responsible and respected in it. So I quite enjoyed that. We were only there for 3 days. There wasn't much time. And then we went to Indonesia. So I told you a little bit about that yesterday. But the feel in Indonesia is totally different than in Taiwan. It's like, there's many countries in which the Chinese live, and the feel in each country in the Chinese community is entirely different. Yeah, entirely different. And especially in Indonesia, in the 70s, the government made it illegal they said they couldn't have Chinese educated schools anymore. They couldn't use Chinese on the billboards or signs in the community or in stores. Everybody had to learn Bahasa Indonesian. And it was an attempt by the government to unify. They have 230 ethnic groups in Indonesia, on 17,000 islands, although I don't think people live on all 17,000. But, it was an effort for the government to unify, at least have a common language. But, it was very disruptive for the people. And so it was very strange for me when I go to Indonesia to be with Chinese who don't speak Chinese, Sometimes they'll go into Hokkien, but Venerable Damcha said they blend Hokkien and Bahasa and everything all kind of into one language, but they communicate. So some people speak Mandarin, but not a whole lot. And so I go, each time I go, it's with a group called Ekayana, which means one vehicle. And they're very inclusive of, all the different types of Buddhism. And so it's very nice, and they have Sangha, they have monastics, and some of them wear Theravada robes, and some of them wear Chinese robes, and some of them wear Tibetan robes, and people seem to get along, which is, is quite nice. And they're really big. They have branches all over the country. So I taught at the main branch in Jakarta, and then they have a new branch temple in one of the suburbs of Jakarta, which was very nice, and it gave me some ideas for our temple. And because everywhere we go, Venerable Damcha and I we're measuring rooms and how many people can you fit in, and what kind of altar do you want, what building materials do they use. Of course, there the climate is so different than ours, so in terms of the building materials for the outside of the buildings, we can't even dream of having what they have, because we need all this insulation. Anyway, what was very interesting is when we were at the temple in the suburbs, we had lunch with a group of people each day. They were very used to offering to Theravada monastics, so it was really a chore to get them to actually eat with us at the same table, because they're used to serving and then going somewhere else and then coming and, cleaning up and eating the rest of the food. But once they gave in, and she was pretty persistent to make it happen, then we had some very nice lunches together, and people were really asking questions about how to apply Dharma to their life, and how to apply Dharma to their jobs, to their relationships, how to raise your children, with emotional issues and forgiveness and self-esteem and, all these kind of practical things. That's what all the questions were about, when we had the informal meetings. And that's mostly what I tried to make the talks very practical too, because they were one-off talks. You're not giving a series of talks on a text, which is a whole different ballgame. So I just look at what His Holiness does, and when he's just giving one talk in a place and it's a public talk, he emphasizes love and compassion and overcoming anger and all these kinds of things that are really useful to people. So that's what I tried to do as well. Then we went to Jambi, which I told you about yesterday, and after that to Palangpong. And we were only in Palangpong one night. I gave a talk there. They had a new hall that they had built, and the hall was huge, and it was completely packed, downstairs and upstairs. So it was really something, to see the interest, everywhere where we were in Indonesia about the Dharma, really. But they need teachings and they need education. Yeah, they have the interest, but Buddhism hasn't been revived there very long, and so the education part is really missing. Dakpo Rinpoche has a group. And so I met with some of them, and they're doing very good work. And they have a geshe there who's teaching, in the usual Tibetan style, which was quite good. And then after that, we flew to Singapore, and the energy there is totally different. Indonesia is nice, kind of laid back and all. Singapore, you are like this. Everybody is like this because you have to succeed and you have to get things done and you've got to be good and you're just, oh my God. The people are lovely. I love the Singaporeans, and have a very good time with them. But when I first went there in 1987, it had a population of 2.5 million. Now it is 6 million, over twice as many, because they want more people to move in. It's only an island. Yeah, it's not a big piece of land like here where you can build out somewhere else. It's only an island. So they build up and they crowd more people in because the government wanted to expand the population so that it could become more of a commercial center in Southeast Asia. And so everybody's jammed in, and there's so much pressure from the government, from the family, to learn, to succeed, to, oh my goodness, and I've been in Singapore a lot. You hardly ever, they have playgrounds and parks, you hardly ever see school-age children playing in a park. Very seldom. You see the little toddlers before they go to school, and they're outside. But all the school children are in school or they're getting tutored after school. Yeah, you don't see them playing. And it's said that play is a very creative exercise for children, and it helps their intelligence and their growth, especially when they have to work together and make up their own games. Remember, like we did, and we used to play in the middle of the street. you don't play in the middle of the street in Singapore. First of all, you'll get hit by a car. But second of all, everything is organized. It's like it's even more organized than the States, I think, what the children do. And it's really, wow. And so you get these young adults, because, we were working also with some of the kids, the young adults, and they're so charming, but they're already so worried about their career and getting a job and succeeding and being somebody. And my most popular word in Singapore was relax. But I'm afraid the government there won't like me if I tell the people to relax, because you're supposed to, produce peace, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, but lovely people. And again, so much interest in the Dharma, and so many different groups. It was really when I went to Singapore in the 80s that I was exposed to so many different kinds of Buddhism and met with different, Sangha members from different traditions and learned a lot about different traditions. And so it's a very nice quality about being there. Yeah. And so we had lunch at 2 different nunneries and met the nuns there. And, we know them from before. We go and visit them every year. And then teaching at a big variety of centers. I don't just give talks at Tibetan centers, but also Theravada and Chinese centers. And so it's very open, very, very broad like that. Yeah. And, people are quite generous, and some of them hopefully will also come here. We really encourage them to. And they were all telling us that Singapore Airlines is opening a non-stop flight from Singapore to Seattle next year. Yeah, so we said, now you can come to visit us. And they were saying, well, we were saying about when you come to see us. Yeah, but hopefully more of them will come.